I'm Annie Botticelli, and this is the Storyteller Forecast for Scorpio for March 2017. Go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com, see what's new on my blog, including lots of Venus retrograde support and helping you to maximize that transit, and see if I have any spots left in my astrology apprenticeship program or my other courses. So what's going on this month of March? We've got outer planets, which I call sumo wrestlers, in these complex and powerful mathematical configurations that bring potentials for massive change. We'll talk about that and the themes that they bring and what you can do with them. We'll talk about the astrological new year and the kickoff party on March 27th, which is the new moon in Aries, the best day of the year besides your birthday to do a vision board. You can see more about that in my Making Wishes Come True with, actually if you just search for Making Wishes Come True and Annie, it will come up. And we're going to talk about Venus retrograde as it relates to your specific sign. When we talk about a transit like Venus retrograde, we talk about the transit through the sign, which is Aries and Pisces. It starts at 13 degrees of Aries and retrogrades back to 26 degrees of Pisces. That is what every sign will experience, the energy of Venus retrograde in Aries, the energy of Venus retrograde in Pisces. But each sign experiences a different facet, an additional facet of that retrograde, depending on what house it retrogrades through. So we're going to focus our reading for Scorpio on which house or houses the retrograde will be featured for you. And it turns out that where Venus is going retrograde, there are also other planets there. So there are multiple layers of the house focus that we're going to talk about for you. So even though Aries rules the 6th house for Scorpio, the eclipse is not going to happen in the 6th house. I mean, not the eclipse. The retrograde is not going to happen in the 6th house. It's going to happen for the early degree placements and for part of the time for the middle degree placements in the 5th house. The rest of the time for the middle degree placements will be in the 4th house, and so will the late degree placements. So if your birthday is between 0 and 10 degrees, like the first 10 degrees of the sign, or if you're watching for your rising sign 0 to 9 degrees, then it will happen in the 5th house. For the middle degree placements, so the next 10 birthdays or days of birth of the sign, or the next 10 degrees, 10 to 20 degrees, that you will experience the retrograde in the 5th and the 4th house. And the late degree placements will, and that's the rest of the sign, or from 20 to 29 degrees, you will experience it in the 4th house. Okay. So what does it look like when Venus goes retrograde in the 5th house? First, what does it look like when Venus goes retrograde, period? Venus rules love, beauty, and money. It's called the triple goddess because she has 3 areas of rulership. So these areas turn out to be a very large part of our daily experience. Love, so they're relationships of all kinds, not just romantic, and how we relate to people. Money, finances, and art, design, beauty, fashion, appearance, all of these things. When Venus is retrograde in the 5th house, it brings the attention back of love, beauty, and money, especially centered around 5th house ventures like children, creative projects, hobbies, sports, athletics, acting is in there, things that are hobbies that you may do as business. They're passions. They're things that you do that are your passion. Pleasure, fun, romance, also the house called true love. So when Venus dips back into this, a very common occurrence is that an issue involving children, conception, pregnancy comes back into focus. Sometimes a child needs attention. Sometimes there's information that you need to focus on involving having a successful pregnancy and childbirth. Sometimes creative projects are the center because creative projects in the chart are housed in the same place that children are, the actual babies. You create a baby, you create an art project. And for many people, their art, their creative expression is their baby. And so creative projects that fell into the backdrop or ideas from the past will resurface. Sometimes ways you've made money through creative work may come back as well. And really the opportunities in this period of time for everyone lie in the past, past connections, past ideas, things you did in the past, things that worked in the past, getting back to basics, basically. So it could be involving money and artistic ventures, or it could just be art for art's sake. Sometimes love relationships cool off in the retrograde, especially when you have the retrograde in the 5th house like this, because it rules true love. So something that was going really hot could start to cool off and get called into question. It's very common. It's better in general if you can avoid making a big decision from the cooling off, because you're not really seeing everything clearly. You don't have all the information, and you might not have all the information really till the end of May, because as soon as Venus goes direct, Mercury's retrograde, so we just sort of have a lot of attention on the past. You know, there are times to really push oneself out into the world, and there are times to keep doing what you're doing, and look more to get things closer to you in order, you know, and that's what this time is. Sometimes romance comes back from the past in Venus retrograde, because Venus rules love, 5th house rules true love. Venus is going backwards, and sometimes love returns. So someone from the past of interest romantically could come back. Sometimes a relationship could come back as current. Also, for relationships that are stable, meaning they've stayed committed, but they've lost the magic, sometimes the magic comes back. And the Venus retrograde transit is a really good time to try to bring the magic back. You know, do things that you used to do things that were fun, do things before everything got so complicated. You know, just, again, getting back to basics. So there is something else, a less fun thing about the 5th house, even though the 5th house actually does rule fun, is that the 5th house rules fun to your detriment as well. So like addictions, indulgences, gambling, things that you could do that are fun for you, but aren't necessarily good for you, and maybe you've overindulged. Repercussions from things you've done in the past could be coming up for you to deal with now, like gambling debt, or, you know, something comes back from a past indulgence to work with and to review and to go back over. Sometimes there are tests, like if you've been off substances, sometimes tests come back to strengthen, you know, what you're trying to do, or to test what you're trying to do. So it's definitely a good time to clear up addictions, and this certainly can be one of the best ways to use this transit if this is coming up for you. Going back to things that were fun for you, this is just the topic of fun. If you can't remember what is fun for you anymore, and unfortunately so many people are so focused on work they can't remember what's fun anymore, this transit could help bring fun back in your life. So hobbies that were fun, just anything that is fun, bringing that back in your life is a really good idea at this time. So questions to ask during this transit. What lessons from the past and present romantic relationships are showing up for you to work with? How can you have more fun in your life? How has having fun in the past negatively affected you now, and how can you rectify this to shift your future trajectory? Things like that. In general, the resources that I recommend for you for this placement or for this transit are individual and family counseling. If there are children that are having some challenges with transitions or other things that they have going on, play therapy is a wonderful way to help them address things. And art therapy. I've started to see some of these things even show up on insurance plans. Even therapy with animals, equine therapy and canine therapy and other animals. You could find that that could be really helpful for children, and your insurance might actually cover that. So it would be a really good time to look into those things. Give kids support that they've been asking for, that maybe you've been too wrapped up with other things to really see or focus on. Doing things to help return magic to the current relationship, asking questions about past relationships coming back in, also investigative research, education, etc. on the topic of conception. Also, something fun to do is something that my friends and I used to do. It's called a clothing swap. When Venus is retrograde in Aries, this is really true for everyone, but it's especially true for this 5th house placement because that's a house of fashion. And so it's not a great time to buy a new wardrobe when Venus is in retrograde, but it is a fine time to bring all of the clothes that you don't resonate with anymore, shoes, jewelry, etc., to your friend's house with a bunch of other people, put it on the floor, bring appetizers, and go to town and each leave with new garments without having to spend any money. Trying things on, playing with things like this in a way that doesn't have a long-term commitment is the gist of what we're trying to capture here. So my affirmation for this transit, and really the theme in general for the month for Scorpio, is I look with childlike wonder at my life, creating refreshing insights and experiences. So I look with childlike wonder at my life, creating refreshing insights and experiences. And you can see these pretty versions of these affirmations that I make for you on my Instagram accounts. So for the rest, for the middle degree placements, you will have part of it there. For the rest of the time, the middle degree placements will have the retrograde in the 4th house, and the late degree placements, you will have the retrograde in the 4th house. The 4th house rules home and family, also childhood and childhood things that affect current home and family circumstances. So family money, family homes, family investments, anything like that, businesses that rule homes, things like that. So lots of things are coming up involving childhood events or things with parents and family, or home or moving or creating your own family. This is a big theme for you middle and late degree Scorpio placements. So it's a great time to research the selling of an item of value, but it's not the best time to sell the item of value. Let's say you have a family heirloom or a house or something, and it's emotional and you kind of just want to get rid of it, right? I understand the value of that. And at the same time, you're not seeing things clearly when Venus is in retrograde. So it's a good time to price things out, to see how much it will cost to get work done, to review different scenarios, but not necessarily a time to officially sell something. If you are a bargain hunter and you have disposable income, or you buy investments that people are getting rid of at an unreasonable price as your work, you can get some smoking hot deals during this time, because people are letting things go right and left. And they, especially with houses, and heirlooms and things like that, you can definitely find things of value. And I have some criteria regarding making purchases during Venus retrograde, so that if your desired purchase meets those criteria, then you're good to go. You can check that out on my Venus retrograde do's and don'ts blog. There's also a video version of that, but it's easier to track that criteria in the blog version. Sometimes lost love can return to your home, so harmony can return to the home sometimes. It's either going to be issues that come into the home from the past, or harmony that comes into the home from the past, or both. If things come up and you deal with them, you can have both ends of the spectrum, the challenge and the resolution. But family and home is a continued focus for Scorpio, and this is a theme that has been in place already, and it's continuing. Also, things involving mother. Both parents could really come up here, but the 4th house relates to mom. So some great questions to ask during this transit. How is your childhood affecting, limiting, accentuating your current relationships? Does a family member need you? How can you support them in a way that honors yourself and your energy? That is, what's the word? Gosh, I just lost it. Not codependent, but interdependent. You want interdependence. And another question you can ask is, do you need help from a family member, and are you hesitating to take it? Maybe you just need to accept that help and just set healthy boundaries and fairness around how that person is being honored with what they're helping you do. How can you create more coherence in your home space? Now, we want to find the balance here. So if you have some chaos in your home space, the answer might be to just get out of that space. But sometimes Spirit brings us up reflections to deal with in our external environment, and sometimes by running away from them, we miss a chance to integrate a pattern that really wants to be integrated and will really serve us for the future. So just really feel into Spirit and really ask the question, am I running away from something that I should stay present with and use resources to help integrate, or do I really just need to have more sacred space right now? How can you make money from past investments involving home or family, or houses in general? So counseling, especially the modality EMDR, which is for post-traumatic stress disorder. I think that pretty much all humans have some version of post-traumatic stress disorder. And this modality EMDR, which is often covered under insurance, you can look for EMDR practitioners by calling your insurance. It's become very mainstream. So doing things to help return magic to current relationships or family things you used to do together. Doing simple and inexpensive things to improve the aesthetics of your home, like reorganizing, clearing out, but not spending a bunch of money. If you have to move during Venus retrograde, this is going to happen for many people. If you can avoid buying really expensive furniture until like the end of May, like just have some makeshift stuff, then you'll have a more clear idea of what you want, because the design aspect of Venus retrograde is such that if you buy a bunch of expensive stuff during Venus retrograde, you might not like it or have the money to pay for it once Venus is direct. So you just kind of want to makeshift some things until the energies are more clear and you're more clear about what you want to have in your new home. So my affirmation for y'all for this part of the transit is, I look upon the past with eyes of forgiveness and a heart full of gratitude. I look upon the past with eyes of forgiveness and a heart full of gratitude. So these are the things that are specific for Scorpio this month. Now I want to talk about the opportunities we have with these outer planet clashes. Jupiter and Uranus, ongoing theme from the end of last year. Jupiter and Pluto, ongoing theme from the end of last year. We're in chapter 2 of those 3 chapter stories. I want to talk about that and the astrological new year. So I'm going to go into all the general transits now. So I'm calling the theme of the month for the general transit, so this is relevant for all signs. Summon your inner badass. And what I imagine when I'm seeing the energies of March all coming together is a hero that is walking through a scene that we're observing, and there are difficulties coming at them, and they're standing tall and strong and confident and moving through and being triumphant at the end of the challenges. Every month brings challenges and opportunities and sweet spots. I see challenges always as opportunities. So a month that has more challenges in some ways can be a month full of more opportunities. We have started to ask wrong questions in our lives, I think, or questions that cause us to experience life in a disempowered way. When we ask questions, what's going to happen in the stars that's going to stress me out? Or tell me what's going to happen, these are disempowered questions. The questions we want to be asking astrology and in general is, help me understand what's going on here so that I can maximize the potentials for my highest expression. And that's what I focus on. So I want to help you ask different questions, and that's part of summoning your inner badass, because the more empowered questions you ask, the more of an empowered life you will live. So we've got multiple important aspects going on this month, and I'm going to go through them and how I think that we can most use them. There are also some lesser aspects that you definitely will feel, sweet days, challenging days, etc. A longer list of those that you can get when you sign up for my free email newsletter at anniehelpsyou.com. You'll get my monthly write-up, which includes a written version of the things that I touch on in the horoscope for the general transits, and it also includes more things that I don't have time to talk about. So if you have signed up for my email newsletter and you're not receiving it, it could be in your spam or social or events folders, because I do send them out every month. Okay, so the first aspect of the month is March 2nd, and this is Jupiter in Libra opposing Uranus in Aries, and this is happening at 20 degrees. So if you have planets near the 20 degrees, you're probably you're going to be affected more than these aspects without them, but globally everyone will still be experiencing this. So that expression, things come in threes, is astrological, and that's because often things that we're experiencing come from aspects in the sky, and these ones that are big long-term themes, they usually involve what I call the titans, the outer planets. It's like a sumo match between these planets that just carry a massive amount of power and a massive amount of potential. So when you have Jupiter, an outer planet, and Uranus, an outer planet, coming together in what could be considered a challenging aspect called an opposition, they're trying to find balance. An opposition is two opposing forces. They're antagonistic, but they can also become synergistic. So the more you can transcend whatever the issue is, the more those planets will work in synastry. So Jupiter wants to expand, and Uranus wants to innovate. Libra is the planet of the sign of we, and Aries is the sign of me. So we've got a me-we aspect of a theme trying to get things worked out that started at the end of December, And this is in March 2nd, it's the second pass. And then on September 27th, we have the final part of the story. These are like chapters in a story that are ongoing. So it's some sort of breaking free from constraints in relationships. And that's basically the theme. So we might perceive someone as limiting us, or someone might be perceiving us as limiting them. And maybe that is true. But what's probably more true is that we have limitations within us as far as how we can experience relationship, and we project that limitation on all of our relationships because it's coming from the inside. So you have an opportunity here to break free from your pattern within yourself, so you can stop enslaving your partner to play a certain role, and you can stop being attractive to those circumstances that are unfulfilling for you. So that's very exciting. So then on March 4th, we have Venus going retrograde. We've been talking about this for a while because the shadow period started at the end of January. And this transit only happens once every 18 months, and there's a lot that goes along with it. So definitely check out my Venus retrograde do's and don'ts blog and video. I'm also writing some other extensive Venus retrograde blogs that you can look for on my website, anniehelpsyou.com. And the basic gist of Venus retrograde is that Venus, we call Venus the triple goddess because she rules love, beauty, and money. So beauty also includes aesthetics in your environment, art, design, fashion, appearance, things like that. So she's going backwards. And when she goes backwards, it's a time to reconsider everything about love, beauty, and money. It's a time to go back to old ideas, old things that worked, old clients. Many people will revisit previous relationships. People who are staying in the same relationship will revisit topics that came up in the past, for better and worse. Venus retrograde is not just a time where unresolved conflicts can come up, although that is definitely a theme. Anything swept under the rug in love, beauty, or money will come back up to be looked at. But it's also a time where lots of magic can return to those areas of life. You can find money. You can have love return to a relationship where it had left. You can find some riches with your self-esteem development, which is another important topic for this retrograde. So we've got that going on from March 4th through April 15th. And it's going to be retrograde from 13 degrees of Aries back to 26 degrees of Pisces. So in the, we talked about where the Venus retrograde is taking place in the house for your sign. For all signs, we will experience Venus retrograde in Aries, which is similar to the first house, or it's the same as the first house retrograde, and 26 degrees of Pisces, which is the same as the 12th house retrograde. So depending on where your placements were for your sign, you might be having the same themes come up, or you might be having some additional themes come up. But the general story of Venus in Aries has to do with self-esteem. It's talking about appearance, fashion, how you put yourself out into the world. Pisces has to do with hidden places. So this is a place where this hidden money can come to you, money that you didn't know that you had, or that you hid from yourself, or that was in the backdrop somehow. It's just stuff from the past involving love, beauty, and money. That's the basic gist of Venus retrograde. So then on March 12th, we have a full moon at 22 degrees of Virgo. And full moons, the best way to manage full moons, I think, is to leave some space around them, because full moons are a time when our emotions just sort of shake off. Everything that we've been accumulating for the month coming to fullness is just a time to shake it off, like a dog shakes off water, So often there's something dramatic, or there's something really cool going on that you want to be present for, So I usually keep a little space around the full moons for whenever these manifestations come up, because the best way to deal with them is to be present with them. So Virgo rules health, your daily work, it rules pets. So it's possible that something involving those things could come to your attention, or need attention, or come up as a focus at this time. The full moon is also making quite a lot of aspects, opposing Mercury and Chiron, trining Pluto, and squaring Saturn. So we've got a lot of power at this full moon, I think, to overcome the energy of woundedness. And this is going to be a theme this month because of aspects with Chiron. Chiron is an asteroid that is called the Wounded Healer. And the idea of the wounded healer, or my understanding of the wounded healer, and as I've observed it through countless charts, is that it's a place of weakness. That deep place where if someone gets at that, then you don't know what comes out. It gets ugly. It's a very wounded place or a very weak place for you. So the idea of Chiron, the highest vibration, is that you strengthen, you focus your attention on that weakness or that vulnerability, and it becomes a strength. So that's the transcendent version. So like in the instance of the energy in Virgo rules health. Maybe some people have health weaknesses. Maybe they have to work harder to attain health. And when that happens, they might wind up being healthier and staving off other health issues because they had a weakness that made them focus on their health. And if they didn't have that meticulous focus, then they could have created other problems maybe, or maybe they wind up teaching or helping people from it, or improving the lives of others because of what they've had to go through. So this is just an example of how you can take any woundedness that comes up this month or ever and convert it into something positive and powerful and supportive. So on March 20th, we have the beginning of the astrological new year. I never feel like the new year is starting on January 1st, especially when it's in the midst of a retrograde like it was this year and some other years. So March is when the planets start to move into Aries, and the planet of Aries, or the sign of Aries, is the baby of the zodiac. It's that bursting forth, that energy of spring, something new beginnings. So you'll see as the planets are moving into this sign, people get impulsive, they get excited, they get wild, they want to do stuff, they feel active. And this is the energy of New Year. So on March 27th, we have the new moon in Aries, and I always consider the new moon in Aries to be like the kickoff party for the New Year. It's like the New Year starts around March 20th, and then when the new moon in Aries comes, it's like, yay, okay, it's a New Year, let's have a party. That's like New Year's Eve, So this new moon in Aries, all the new moons in Aries, so the one new moon that we have in Aries a year, is the best time of the whole year besides your birthday to do vision boards or other seed planting for your future, things that you want in that upcoming year. So definitely take full advantage of that. This new moon also carries a lot of power. It's conjunct Chiron and Venus. It's a square Saturn, and it's coinciding with a Mars in Taurus and Neptune sextile, which is a 60-degree angle. It's a positive angle. So there's, again, a lot of power behind this moon phase. On March 30th, we have our last big aspect of the month, which is the second Jupiter square with Pluto. Similar to how we've been talking about this Jupiter opposition with Libra, how it happened once last year, so did this Jupiter and Pluto aspect. And this one's happening at 19 degrees. On November 24th of last year, this Jupiter and Pluto first pass happened. Now on March 30th, the second pass happens. And then on August 4th, the last pass will happen. So we've got these 3 chapters of this ongoing story. And one of the main themes, I think, of this ongoing story has to do with ambitions, rising ambitions, and the idea of competition and what we have to do or what we're willing to do or what we think we have to do to succeed. In a third dimensional reality, there is competition. There's focus on competition. And there are all of the energies that go along with competition. It's kind of gross, It can be very, very low vibe and not conducive to conscious evolution to focus too much on the energy of competition. My suggestion, I invite you to use this energy to transcend competition and tune into divine timing and your divine path and purpose. So if you're out there doing what you're supposed to be doing and you feel like Spirit is guiding you and you're on track and you're speaking your truth or doing your truth, then it doesn't really matter what anyone else is doing. You will attract to you the people and the customers that will be perfect for you. And so really there's no competition on the spiritual plane. And this is an affirmation from Florence Scovel Shinn, who is one of my all-time favorite teachers. She's not in form anymore that I know of. She wasn't even when she came to me. She had passed a long time ago. So she was teaching about She was actually teaching about Jesus's work as a metaphysician, teaching about transcending mundane reality while still in form, like bringing heaven onto earth in our experience. And that is an affirmation I got from her. So there's no competition on a spiritual plane. So if you are conducting yourself in a way that is high vibrational, if you are doing everything that is in sync with your beliefs and your values, then you can transcend this energy, so you just check in with yourself and see how this is true for you, and just look out for it, because these themes are sometimes very subtle. Sometimes they come more into the forefront, but overall they're very subtle sometimes. So these are the main things that I am seeing for the month for the general transit. So you have plenty of opportunities to summon your inner badass. Definitely go to my website, anniehelpsyou.com. Check out my blogs. I have blogs on all different kinds of topics, not just astrology. If you want to learn astrology with me, then I might still have some slots available in my astrology apprenticeship program. If you want to bring your business online, check out my Creating Successful Online Business course. And if you would like to be a coach as your profession, then you can check out my coach certification course. So I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye.